South fans, our dynamic start to the season continues here at Lakeside Stadium in the original Melbourne derby, where South Melbourne has come away with a 2-0 victory. Of course, the third consecutive win to start the season for Esteban Quintas's men. It was an interesting game, South fans. I would say it had definitely the tension you would expect in a Melbourne derby. Obviously, it was a home game for South Melbourne. We'd started, better than the Melbourne Knights, who of course won 5-0 in their first game against Dandenong City. Last week against Avondale, they lost 3-0, so they came into this game sort of, I would say in indifferent form, really, I think it's fair to say, whereas South Melbourne, convincing winners over Heidelberg by 3-1. Tough game against Bentley, to be fair, but, if you score 3 goals away, you probably deserve to win. I'd say South Melbourne probably did edge the game overall against Bentley, even though they had, a period of 20-25 minutes in the second half where they had, a lot of the ball. And today, South fans, it was interesting to see because obviously, the Melbourne Knights are a club which I think all South Melbourne fans, follow relatively closely throughout a season. They are a historic club, one of the greatest clubs in Australian football history from trophy winning perspective and also from, a player production perspective. In my opinion, they haven't been as strong as what I would like them to be in the NPL Victoria. I know that sounds a little contradictory, but the main reason why I really want them to be strong is because, I love to see, these derby matches have as many people as possible on the ground and, the game's really having a bit of fire. And I'd say today, we started to get a little bit closer to that, especially with South Melbourne's, strong start to the season. I'd say the crowd overall was, I'd estimate between 1,500 to 1,700, lower than what I was expecting. I'm sure there's a variety of reasons for that. I'd say probably the major reason would be the rain that was forecast. In the end, it was very light rain, but driving to the city when there's rain on the horizon, I think will detract a few people. There are some other NPL games on. You can make excuses. Overall, I think 15 to 1,700, I think, was a good crowd. The atmosphere was good. Hopefully, if both these teams can continue strongly in the next encounter at Knights Stadium, the crowd will hopefully be bigger. Look, I'd say on the balance of play, absolutely, South Melbourne deserve to win tonight. The Melbourne Knights may say, look, we probably had more possession, especially more decisive possession in the middle of the field. Esteban Quintas did make some changes in the second half where he brought on Wallen. He eventually also brought Almazi, also Ingham as well. But in particular, Almazi and Wallen, were injected into the midfield. And really, I think, we started to end some of that midfield. I think it's unfair to say midfield dominance, but what the Melbourne Knights were doing is they were able to cut the ball or shift the ball through the middle of the park with ease at times, right? So, once Jay Ingham came on, we scored the second goal. Almazi and Wallen were also on. Almazi came on later. That's when you knew the game was essentially tied up. But before that, it was quite a tense game. Obviously, the first goal came very late in the first half, and it was another weapon that South Melbourne has. Because one thing that we need to say about South Melbourne so far this season, even though we've started perfectly in terms of winning all 3 matches against difficult opponents, is that all the new players that we've brought in, they've contributed so far. And today was no different. The first goal in what was quite a tense first half. Again, I would say South Melbourne had certainly the better chances, but the Knights were dangerous in the way they were penetrating. And of course, we do know that they've got, in my opinion, 2 of the better strikers in the league in Sokol and Frangi. Playing up front, they showed their quality, I think, for all to see, especially against Dandenong City. The goal that Sokol scored to chip the keeper was simply sensational and indicates, a player of immense quality. But yeah, as mentioned, the new signings that South Melbourne brought in, we saw on display again today. Max Mikola, who would think a player so technically gifted, has a great shot, great dribble, can hold the ball in tight, but he's also got a ridiculous throw in. And today, it bared fruit for South Melbourne. 41st minute, he throws it like, he basically threw it like a flat cross. It was unbelievable. Usually I thought, okay, he's got a ridiculously long throw. Obviously, in order to get it, as long as possible, say to the back post, he probably has to do a looping throw. But, this throw was a bit flatter. And it was flat enough for Pat Langlois, another new signing. Obviously, he was scoring in the preseason and he's brought that form into the season proper as well. He managed to score his second goal in succession. Of course, he scored last week against Bentley with an absolutely, stunning header from, I'd say, about 12 or 13 yards, directly off the throw-in. rarely do you see that combination actually in any form of football. You know, a throw-in that leads to a goal from 12 or 13 yards with a decisive header just indicates how much power Mikola actually got on that throw-in, and also how good the header was from Langlois, an angled header into the bottom right-hand corner of goalkeeper Thomas Manos, who must be said was probably, you know, a player for the Melbourne Knights that really stood out. He made a number of saves. One that stands out in the first half was a free kick that Marcus Schroen took, probably, I would say, you know, 19, 20 yards out, close to the edge of the box, slightly on the right-hand side, but he hit it, obviously, with his left foot. He's a left footer. Was going to the top corner. Manos isn't the tallest keeper, so he had to be absolutely at full stretch, and he managed to, like, almost fist it, like, you know, at full stretch out of the top corner. That was a brilliant save. Later on in the match, he also denied Sawyer, who it must be said, you know, absolutely, toils for 90 minutes plus. I think he's enjoying playing in this team because there's less pressure on him to score goals. There's so many, goal-scoring options in and around Sawyer that really he can take the best defender, sometimes the two best defenders, wrestle with them. He often wins it. One thing that he has improved on this year, I feel, as he's probably gotten more match fit, is, you know, his ability to keep the ball in close. Like when he gets in front of a defender, which is often obviously when we're playing, for example, a long out ball to him, he'll win the header or he'll keep it in close, produce a good layoff pass. You know, he deserves credit. He's had a great start to the season. Unfortunately, even though he technically hasn't scored, he initially claimed the goal against Heidelberg. It was, I think, later given after viewing the replay as an own goal. But, he deserves credit, and he was denied by a very, very sharp save late in the second half by Manos. You know, Sawyer broke into the box, managed to go past one or two plays. He sort of stumbled his way past, really, obviously being a very strong player. And then, you know, it was like a disguised shot with his right foot to the bottom left-hand corner, Manos's right, and Manos was able to react remarkably quickly to save with his feet. It would have been a goal that Sawyer, I think, would have deserved. Unfortunately, he didn't get it. I do also want to shout out to goalkeeper Javi Lopez. Of course, last week he made, a pretty big error, I would say, against his ex-club Bentley. He was solid, I'd say, for the rest of the match, but today he was perfect. Honestly, he grabbed all the balls in the air. He made, I'd say, about 2 or 3 sharp saves, because it must be worth saying, like, if some Melbourne Knights fans are listening to this, you know, we need to be honest. The Knights did have 2 or 3 good chances. In particular, I'd say sharp half chances, you know, those chances that you're in the box. If you produce a, great angled strike, it's going to go in. And those are the sort of opportunities that Lopez saved 2 or 3 times very sharply. He came out, he narrowed the angles perfectly, and as mentioned, he grabbed everything in the air as well. And for a keeper, I wouldn't say he's a short keeper, but he certainly isn't a tall keeper. He's an average-sized keeper. His decisiveness in the air today, was really, really encouraging to see. So that was another highlight, and yet another new player that South Melbourne signed. Of course, you mentioned, I think we briefly touched upon that. Jai Ingham, he came on, played a little bit longer today. I think he would have come on with, approximately 35, 40 minutes to go. You can see he's building, he's getting fitter. And one thing he certainly has in his game, South fans, which you don't get to see really that much in players at any level, he's got that extreme confidence in his game. You just know when he's got the ball at his feet, he's going to try jing past the player. Even though you might predict which way he's going to go, he's so sharp on the ball, he can still pull it off. And one thing that he has, which in this league, and in any league really, but in this league in particular, it's going to be absolutely decisive, is that he's got, a very, very good finish on him. Today, as the game was still in the balance, even though South Melbourne was winning 1-0, Wallen, who had also come on, I think I'd briefly mentioned, we brought him and Almazi on, and we started to negate the possession in the middle of the park by the Knights. He basically went on a bit of a run, got to the edge of the box, jinked the ball to Ian. And I'm like, when's he going to hit it? When's he going to hit it? You can tell he's a good striker of the ball, or a master of striking the ball, when he just lets it go across his body for a little bit longer than what you'd expect. And then when he unleashes, he unleashed a strike, I don't know, I'd say from 15, 16 yards. May have been slightly outside the box, but I think it was just in, to be fair. And goalkeeper Manos had absolutely no chance. Of course, the South fans were in raptures, 2-0 against our eternal, original Melbourne derby rivals, the Melbourne Knights. Overall, deserved victory. Next week, we go to another Croatian club, St Albans away. They are a team, of course, who's going to be battling to stay up. Well, that's what everybody thinks. Of course, they got a huge result last week, 2-1, which I'd say, I think it was against Dandenong City from memory, I'd say was relatively unexpected. only because people seem to disrespect St Albans, but I'll say they're probably going to give us a very good match. They've got a couple of players. I saw they signed Jurkovic from the Melbourne Knights, very, very strong centre-back. They got Zander guy from the NPL Queensland. From memory, he was playing at, I think, Peninsula Power, and he's one of the better, wingers from the NPL Queensland. They've got players, designed to keep the team up and to cause an upset. And at their home ground, there's going to be fans, in abundance, hopefully both from South Melbourne and also St Albans. And hopefully it's going to be a super game. So I encourage all fans next Sunday, I believe, Fox Street, St Albans. Let me just double check the time if I can just come across it. Let's just have a quick look. At 5 p.m, I believe, South Melbourne travel to St Albans, the fourth round of the season. If you can get down to the match, get down there, South fans. We're on a roll. We need to keep it going. We need to provide extra, impulse and momentum to the players, because if we can win next week, I'd say we'll solidify a spot in the top two. Go South!